Everyone, Ali A here. This is your Chapter 7 final review. So, we're starting off with kind of a dumb question here, because this would just be, that'd be like 4x or something like that. But, yeah, so 4x is what that equals, and that divided by 2 is 4x. I think, maybe. I don't really know.
And that's why you need to go for 6 years of post-secondary education and get an education degree before you can actually make these videos. So thank you, Zach, for that wonderful introduction. But he is right. It is kind of an easy question. And the answer is false, and here's why. 2x plus 2x is actually, if I was to draw it, is 1x and 2x plus another 2x. And if we go back to Chapter 5, the answer for that is 4x squared. The second part to this question, 8x squared divided by 2, if we think about 8x squared as being 8 times x divided by 2, when we work that out, we end up getting 4x squared as what half of 8x was, and that makes sense because half of 8x squared would be 4x squared, and therefore it's false because 4x is not the same thing as 4x squared. Yes. The second true-false question says 2x squared plus 2x is equal to the product of 2x and x plus 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take this distributive property and expand it. 2x times x is 2x squared, and 2x times 1 is 2x. Now when I consider this question, is 2x squared plus 2x the same thing as 2x squared plus 2x? Of course, the answer is true. And what you had to do is simply expand the product of the monomial and the binomial to get the expanded binomial. Question 3 is the division of a binomial by a monomial equal to x plus 1. So if I consider 2x squared divided by 2x, remember we're going to divide both parts by 2x. And we consider 2x divided by 2x. Here I would end up with x. And here I would end up with 1, or a positive 1. And therefore the answer for question 3 would be true. When you divide 2x squared plus 2x by 2x, you get x plus 1. Question 3 says 2x times 3x, is it equal to 5x? The answer is false. There's two ways to do it. You can say 2x plus 3x is equal to 5x, or that 2x multiplied by 3x is actually 6x squared. So either one of those explanations on your test would have been sufficient. Oh, sorry, 5x, not 5. Question 5, the division of 10x cubed by itself is equal to 0. The answer is false. The answer is 1, not 0. Any number divided by itself is 1. And finally, question 6, if a rectangle had a length of 10 and a width of x minus 1, its area will be 10x minus 1. The answer for this one is false as well, because area equals length times width, or 10 multiplied by x minus 1, which means I need to use distributive property, and the area would really be 10x minus 10, not 10x minus 1. Here we go. Your next question says solve by modeling. So what we'll do is we'll take this here, and I'll make it a little bit bigger on my paper. And it says, what is the product of 3x and negative 2x? So on your test, it doesn't matter which direction you go. I'm going to make this my 3x. And when you do 3x, make sure you shade them in to make sure they're positive. And a negative 2x will be your unshaded x tiles. Simply connect all of the parts here and ask yourself, those x square tiles in the middle, are they going to be negative or positive? The answer is each of them is going to be negative. So when you fill that in, solving by modeling, the answer will be negative 6x squared. Here's the next one. It says solve by modeling again. This time when you're given division, what I advise you to do is draw your first one on here to start. So I'm going to put my x on here. And then I'm going to figure out, since the first one, a division is really the area divided by one of the lengths, or the width, doesn't matter which one you write, is equal to the other one, width or length, whatever you have. Then I'm going to draw my length first, and then put in my area here. So my area is 2 positive x squared tiles. And therefore, once I draw that, I know that my other missing side is going to be 2 positive x's. And therefore, the solution, or the missing width, is 2x. Next question says solve by modeling. This time we're dealing with a binomial multiplied by a monomial, but the same process happens. I'm going to take an x and an x as my width. My length will be an x and a minus 4. Then I'm going to simply connect the area in. There's my area. Drop all this stuff in here. Cut it across there. These will be positive x squares because the length and width are both positive x's. And the 8 negative x's in there are going to be negative because this is a negative 1, and this is a positive x, and a negative 1 times a positive x is a negative x. So we'll leave all those algebra tiles in there unshaded to show that they're negative. And therefore the solution is 2x squared minus 8x. And your final question in the modeling says model negative 2x squared plus 4x divided by 2x. Again, consider in a division, top number is your area, bottom number is your length, and the missing or the answer is your width. So what I'll do is I'll put my length in first, which is 2x's. Then try and fit your area in here. So there's going to be a negative x squared and a positive 4x. So that's my area of negative 2x squared and positive 4x. And the missing dimension, or in this case the width, I could solve by modeling to know that this is going to be a negative x, because a negative x times a positive x gives me this area of negative x squareds. And these have to be positive 2's, because a positive 1 and a positive x multiply to give you a positive x. So therefore the solution, according to my model, is negative 2x squareds plus 4x. Sorry, I did that wrong. I did that wrong. So I did the multiplication, sorry. The answer is the length, which is negative x plus 2. My apologies. Your next question asks you to use an area model to solve, and it gives you the product of x and 2x minus 7. So of course, since it's an area model, the x will be our monomial side, and our 2x minus 7 will be the 2 parts to this length of the entire rectangle. And what we're really going to use is we're going to calculate the area of this rectangle, we're going to calculate the area of this rectangle, and together they will be the area of the entire green rectangle, or purple rectangle, which will be the product of x and 2x minus 7. So x times 2x is going to be 2x squared. That's the area that's in this smaller rectangle. And x times negative 7 is negative 7x. So therefore the solution will be 2x squared minus 7x. Your next question, you're given a division, and you can still use the same thing, except now our area is going to be this, a 4x and a negative 8. And our width is going to be negative 2. So when you do this, you could actually do two things. You could say what number times negative 2 is 4x. That's one way to approach it. And in this case, it would be a negative 2x. You could also take your area and divide it by negative 2 to get negative 2x if you wanted to. You could do it either way. But either way, you're going to get negative 2x. So what number multiplied by negative 2 is negative 8? The answer is positive 4. Negative 2 times positive 4 is negative 8. And therefore, your solution, or the length of this rectangle, is negative 2x plus 4. For the next questions, 13 to 21, use distributive, or 23, use distributive property to solve. So here, I'm going to multiply 2x by 4x, or 2 times x times 4 times x. And I guess this isn't really distributive property. I suppose I shouldn't have used that as my answer. But so we're going to multiply our coefficients first to get 8, multiply our variables to get in exponential form 8 squared, and the answer is 8x squared for the product of 2x and 4x. Negative 2x multiplied by negative 5x, so a negative 2 multiplied by an x multiplied by a negative 5 multiplied by an x multiplied by an x. This part right here is negative 5x squared, and this part right here is negative 2x. Since the associative property of mathematics says it doesn't matter which way you multiply them, we'll multiply our coefficients first, give us a positive 10, and then our x's x times x times x in exponential form is x cubed, so therefore the solution is 10x cubed. Division of a monomial by a monomial. 10x squared is 10 times x, divided by negative 5 times x. 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2 over 1. X over x is 1 over 1. X over x is 1 over 1. Negative 2 times 1 is still negative 2. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So therefore, your solution for what is 10x squared divided by negative 5x squared, the answer is negative 2. This is a trickier one, and it does appear in your test, so please pay attention. When you have 2 times x over 4 times x, 2 over 4 will reduce down to 1 over 2, not 2 over 1. X over x will reduce down to 1 over 1. So 1 times x is x. 2 times 1 is 2. So our coefficient and our variable is x over 2. Another way you could have said it was 1 over 2 is really 0.5. So you can have 0.5x, or if you wanted to, a half of x. But either way, all three of those answers is the solution. You could either say half of x this way, half of x that way, or half of x like that. Your next question is 0.5x multiplied by 4xy. So it's 0.5 multiplied by x multiplied by 4 multiplied by x multiplied by y. 4 times 0.5 is 2. X times x is x squared, and y stays y. So your solution to this one would be 2x squared y. Your next question is 2 multiplied by 3x minus 4, which requires us to expand using distributive property. So it's really 2 times 3x and 2 times negative 4. This will give us 6x. This will give us negative 8. So the solution is 6x minus 8. Here, there's two ways to do it. You can think of this as being negative 1, x squared minus 2x minus 3. Or the way I like to think of it is the opposite of. The opposite of x squared minus 2x minus 3. And either way you do it, if you multiply this out, you get negative 1x or negative x squared, Negative 1 times negative 2x, well, 1 times 2x is 2x, and a negative times a negative is a positive, and a negative 1 times a negative 3 is a positive 3. Now, if we look inside here, the opposite of this is actually this. So either way I did it, either if I interpret it as negative 1 outside the brackets or the opposite of, I would get negative x squared plus 2x plus 3. Negative 2x minus multiplied by negative 2x minus 5, so negative 2 times x multiplied by negative 2 times x will be a positive 4x squared. And a negative 2x multiplied by, now be careful not to forget about your sign there. It is a negative 5, not a positive 5. And that's important because it's going to be a positive 10x when you multiply it out. So your solution is 4x squared plus 10x. Division, 10x squared divided by negative 2x, and negative 2x divided by negative 2x. 10 divided by negative 2 is going to be a negative 5 over 1. Notice how the negative symbol swapped over into the numerator, because that's where I want to keep it if it's not a 1. X squared over x is going to be simply x, and therefore I'm going to end up with negative 5x as my solution to the first part of distributive property. And the second part, there's two ways to think about it. Any number divided by itself is 1, but a negative 2 divided by negative 2 is a positive 1 over 1. X 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, which means it's a positive 1, which means it's a plus 1, not a minus 1. On your test, there'll be a lot of people that put a negative 1 there instead of a plus 1. Next question is a trinomial. Write each part, because each part's going to be divided by negative 2. This will be a negative 6x squared. This will be a positive 4x. So this will be a negative 2. I did that without showing you the cross, but I think you can figure it out yourself. So the answer for this one is negative 6x squared. And don't forget it's a plus because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Plus 4x minus 2. Another one of these fractional questions. So if I look at this one, negative 10x squared is negative 10 times x divided by 20x, which looks like this. Negative 10 divided by 20 is negative 1 over 2. X over x is going to be like that. And therefore, when I multiply my numerators, I get negative 1 times x, which is just negative x over 2. And remember, when you get that as a solution, you can either write it like that, or like this, or like this. So whichever way you choose to write it doesn't matter to me. Let's choose to write it like this. Since we're not using it in algebra, I'll write it like that. The second part to that would be 40x divided by 20x. 40 over 20 is 2 over 1. X over x is 1 over 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. So your answer is simply 2, or a positive 2. So your solution to this one is a negative half of x plus 2. You could also write it as a negative half of x plus 2, or negative half of x plus 2. All three are the same thing. Your next question says a rectangle has an area of 12x squared plus 12x plus 4. So I'm going to draw me rectangle. And I'm going to put 12x squared plus 12x plus 4. And I'm going to put the monomial as its width or length, whatever you want to think of. Now, if I wanted to, I could drop it into an area model with 3 parts. For some of you, that might help you. That means this is 3x squared. That means this is 3x. And that means this is 1. Connect them with signs there, and I have my length of this rectangle would be 3x squared plus 3x plus 1. So now I have my dimensions, and if I think about this rectangle again as this black distance around here, this distance here is also the same as the other one, and this distance here is 4, and the perimeter is the distance around. Now on your test, I will expect you to write this formula. Perimeter of any rectangle is 2 lengths plus 2 widths, and the reason why I want you to do that is I want you to write 2 lengths and 2 widths. And by writing it this way, it requires you to do multiplication of polynomials and addition of polynomials, which is at Chapter 5 and Chapter 7. The 2 lengths of this part here and this part here make up a perimeter, or a quarter, or half of the perimeter of 8. And this end up being 6x squared plus 6x plus 2. Now that we have this, we have to look for like terms. Going back to Chapter 5, those two are like terms, which means I have 6x squared plus 6x plus 10 as my solution for my perimeter. And therefore, the perimeter would equal 6x squared, 6x plus 10. And your last question is fill in the pyramid. So this times this equals this, which means this divided by this equals this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, oh, that's a minus, not a plus, and divide it by this to figure out what is the missing side length. That means this is a negative x squared, because a negative 2 times a negative x squared is a positive 2x squared. A negative 4x divided by a negative 2 is a positive 2x. And a positive 3 divided by a negative 2 is a negative 1.5. Okay? Everybody's okay with that one? On your test, filling in that one pyramid, that one part of the pyramid is a point. Your next part says, what is this one? And now I'm given this and this. I have to multiply to get that. So we have x multiplied by negative x squared plus 2x minus 1.5. Use distributive property. That gives you negative x cubed plus 2x squared minus 1.5x. That will get you your second point. And now the third one says take the two stones below the pyramid and add it to get the one above. So here, you're really going to take 2x squared minus 4x plus 3 and add to it negative x cubed plus 2x squared minus 1.5x. And since you're adding polynomials, you're really gathering like terms. Your x cubed is your highest degree term in the 6 terms that are there, so it stays as your first. 2x squared and your 2x squared will make a positive 4x squared. Your negative 4x and your negative 1.5x is a negative 5.5x. And your constant of plus 3 remains by itself. Therefore, the top step of your pyramid is negative x cubed plus 4x squared minus 5.5x plus